Colonel Price, it's an honor to finally meet you in person. Your classified work has saved thousands of lives and changed the course of operations I'm not authorized to discuss in public, General Morrison said as he walked straight to me at my father's retirement party, his hand rising in a crisp salute that silenced every conversation in the room. The men and women of the intelligence community owe you a debt that will never be fully acknowledged. My mother laughed nervously, wine glass frozen halfway to her lips, while my father looked between the four-star general and his disappointment of a daughter with an expression of complete bewilderment. But why did I return the salute with practiced precision instead of explaining there'd been a mistake, and why did General Morrison's next words make my sister's whispered, "Colonel," sound like the beginning of a family reckoning 20 years in the making? No mistake, Mr. Price. Your daughter is a decorated hero. The Medal of Honor she received last month was classified, but I can tell you it was earned in ways that most Americans will never know about. Medal of Honor? The room went absolutely silent. 200 guests, my father's colleagues from 35 years in accounting, his golf buddies, our relatives from 3 states, all staring at me as if I'd transformed into someone they never met. Which, in a sense, I had. My father repeated, his voice cracking on the words. Victoria works in, she said she works in data analysis. Government contracts. General Morrison smiled, not unkindly, but with the particular expression of someone about to deliver a revelation that would change everything. Data analysis. Yes, that's her cover story. One she's maintained with remarkable discipline for 16 years. The cover story had been carefully constructed when I was 23 years old. I'd told my family I was taking a job with a government contractor, boring work, low pay, something to fill the gap while I figured out what to do with my life. They believed it because it fit their expectations. Victoria was the underachiever. The one who dropped out of pre-med after 2 years. The one who'd bounced between jobs while her siblings built impressive careers. The one who showed up at family gatherings with vague explanations about spreadsheets and data entry and federal contracts that weren't interesting enough to discuss. My brother Marcus was a surgeon. My sister Elena was a corporate attorney. My father had spent 35 years rising to senior partner at his accounting firm. I analyzed data. Somewhere. For someone. The truth was classified so highly that even confirming my actual employer would have been a federal crime. The recruitment had happened during my sophomore year of college. A professor I'd never noticed paying particular attention to me had asked me to stay after class one afternoon. You have unusual pattern recognition abilities, Dr. Hammond had said. And an aptitude for languages that your academic records don't fully reflect. There are people who'd like to speak with you about opportunities that aren't publicly advertised. I'd thought he was talking about graduate programs. He was talking about the Defense Intelligence Agency. The 16 years since that conversation had been spent doing work I could never discuss. Signals intelligence. Pattern analysis. The kind of cognitive work that involved staring at data streams until hidden connections emerged from apparent chaos. I'd been deployed to sites I couldn't name, worked on operations I couldn't acknowledge, and developed capabilities that had, according to General Morrison, saved thousands of lives. The Medal of Honor, the nation's highest military decoration, had been awarded in a classified ceremony attended by 12 people. No photographs. No public records. My name on a citation locked in a vault somewhere beneath the Pentagon. Why are you here? I asked the general quietly, aware of the audience surrounding us. Why now? Because I'm retiring too. And before I leave, I wanted to personally thank the people who made the biggest difference during my command. You're at the top of that list, Colonel. But my cover has been maintained. Your family still doesn't know the details. They just know now that the details exist. My father approached with the careful steps of someone navigating unfamiliar terrain. Victoria, what is he talking about? Dad, I can't discuss specifics. Not here. Not ever, really. But you're a colonel? In the military? In the intelligence services. The rank is equivalent. The work is different from what you imagined. Different how? You said you analyze data. I do analyze data. I just analyze data that affects national security operations. Sometimes from locations that aren't exactly comfortable or safe. My father looked at me as if seeing a stranger wearing his daughter's face. Why didn't you tell us? Because I wasn't allowed to. And because? I hesitated, weighing how much honesty this moment could bear. Because you would never have believed me anyway. That was the heart of it, really. The family dynamics that had shaped my childhood had also shaped my cover. I'd been categorized early as the smart one who doesn't apply herself. The one with potential she refused to realize. The one who couldn't settle on a career, couldn't find direction, couldn't become the success story her siblings had become. When I'd taken a job with a government contractor at 23, my family had seen it as further evidence of mediocrity. When I'd missed holidays due to work commitments, they'd assumed I was avoiding family rather than deployed to locations where holidays didn't exist. When I'd arrived at gatherings with circles under my eyes and conversation deflections, they'd thought I was depressed rather than exhausted from operations they couldn't imagine. The cover had worked because it aligned with what they already believed about me. My mother approached next, her nervousness transforming into something more complicated. "Victoria, this is real? You're actually what he said?" "Yes, Mom. But the Medal of Honor, that's the highest decoration. That's for soldiers who..." "I'm not a combat soldier. My work is different. But sometimes different work carries the same risks." "Have you been in danger? Real danger?" I thought about the operations I'd supported. The Times pattern recognition had identified threats minutes before they materialized. The nights spent in bunkers while hostile forces searched for the communications arrays I was protecting. Yes. Real danger. Several times. My mother's eyes filled with tears. "Why didn't you tell me? I could have supported you. You could have supported me by believing in me when I was failing out of pre-med. You could have supported me when I was taking boring government jobs that everyone dismissed. The support I needed came before I had medals to justify it." The words were sharper than I'd intended. 20 years of accumulated frustration finding an exit. The party continued around us, though the energy had shifted dramatically. My father's retirement, the ostensible reason for the gathering, had been eclipsed by revelations about his disappointing daughter. General Morrison had retreated to a corner, speaking with my father's boss about something unrelated. He delivered his message and allowed the family dynamics to unfold naturally. My siblings approached together, presenting a united front of confusion. "Colonel?" Marcus repeated for the third time. "You outranked me in military terms and you never said anything? You never asked. You were too busy explaining how I was wasting my potential. That's not fair. You told me at Thanksgiving 3 years ago that I should try to be more ambitious, like Elena. I'd just returned from an operation that disrupted a terrorist network targeting American infrastructure. I couldn't tell you that, so I just nodded and agreed that I should be more ambitious." Elena stepped forward. "We didn't know. You didn't want to know. You had a narrative about me, disappointing Victoria, underachieving Victoria, the family failure who couldn't commit to anything. The narrative was comfortable. It made everyone else feel better about their own successes. That's not what we thought." "It's exactly what you thought. I heard the conversations. What are we going to do about Victoria? Maybe she'll eventually find her path. At least Marcus and Elena turned out well. You discussed me like a problem to be solved, not a person to be understood." The accumulated grievances poured out in ways I hadn't anticipated. I'd spent 16 years protecting my cover, maintaining the illusion of mediocrity that kept my work secure. But that protection had also required absorbing my family's disappointment, their condescension, their endless suggestions for how I might improve myself. The cover had been professionally necessary. The emotional cost had been personally devastating. My father returned to our conversation with a glass of scotch and an expression of someone whose worldview had been fundamentally disrupted. "I don't understand how this happened. How did you end up in whatever this is?" "I was recruited because I had skills the intelligence community needed. Pattern recognition, language aptitude, the ability to find connections in complex data sets." "But you struggled in college." "I struggled in pre-med because I hated pre-med. I was good at the things I cared about. Those things just weren't the things you cared about. We wanted you to have a stable career." "I have a stable career. I've served my country for 16 years. I've risen to a rank that places me among the senior leadership of my agency. I've received decorations that most people don't know exist. But we thought. You thought I was a failure. You thought I was drifting. You thought I needed constant guidance and redirection because I couldn't manage my own life." I set down my drink. "What you actually thought was that success only looked like what Marcus and Elena achieved. Everything else was disappointment." General Morrison rejoined our group, perhaps sensing that his revelation had created aftershocks still reverberating. "Mr. Price, I apologize if my presence has complicated your celebration. But I felt strongly that Colonel Price's family should know something about her service, even if the specifics remain classified. You said she saved thousands of lives. Conservative estimate. The operations she supported have prevented attacks on American soil, protected military personnel abroad, and disrupted networks that would otherwise continue threatening innocent people. And she couldn't tell us any of this? Classification isn't about family trust. It's about operational security. The less people know about classified work, the less can be inadvertently revealed through casual conversation." My father absorbed this slowly. "So every time we worried about her, every time we thought she was struggling, she was serving her country in ways you couldn't imagine. The data analysis cover wasn't just a lie, it was a sacrifice. She let you believe she was mediocre to protect work that was extraordinary. The reframe was difficult for everyone. 20 years of family narrative had to be reconstructed. 20 years of assumptions, judgments, well-meaning suggestions that now revealed themselves as profoundly misguided. My mother approached me again, her tears flowing freely now. We failed you, didn't we? All those years of thinking we needed to fix you, and you were already. I was already who I am. I just couldn't show you. Can you ever forgive us? There's nothing to forgive. You believed what I told you. The cover worked because it was believable. But we should have trusted you. We should have believed there was more to the story. Maybe. But that's not how families usually work, is it? We see each other through established lenses. You saw me as the underachiever because that's what the evidence suggested. I couldn't correct the evidence without compromising everything. The party eventually resumed something like normalcy. My father received his accolades, his gold watch, his farewell speeches from colleagues who'd worked alongside him for decades. But I noticed the glances. The whispered conversations. The way people looked at me differently now, not with the polite dismissiveness I'd grown accustomed to, but with curiosity, respect, maybe even awe. General Morrison left after an hour, shaking my hand with formal warmth. You've given them a lot to process, Colonel. You gave them plenty yourself, General. They deserve to know something. Not everything, but something. He paused. The hardest part of our work isn't the danger or the secrecy. It's watching the people we love misunderstand us and not being able to correct them. Yes, sir. That's exactly right. I hope this helps. I hope knowing changes something, even if they can't know the details. The drive home that night was silent. My mother had insisted I stay at the family house, and I'd agreed, partly because I was exhausted, partly because I suspected the real conversations were still coming. They came at 2 a.m., when my father knocked on my childhood bedroom door. Can we talk? Of course. He sat on the edge of the bed, a man who'd spent 35 years understanding numbers suddenly confronting something that couldn't be quantified. I'm proud of you. I need you to know that. Thank you. But I'm also ashamed. Of myself. Of how we treated you. Dad. Let me finish. I spent years giving you advice about careers, about ambition, about finding direction. I was condescending because I thought I knew better. But you were already doing more important work than I ever did, and I was too blind to see it. You couldn't see it. That was the point. No, I mean, I was too blind to see you. The person you actually are, beyond the cover story. I should have trusted that you knew your own path, even when I couldn't understand it. The silence between us stretched into something more comfortable than I'd expected. My father, for all his flaws, was capable of growth. The evening's revelations had cracked something open in him, and what emerged was humility rather than defensiveness. What happens now? He asked. I keep doing my job. The cover is partially blown with family, but the work continues. Can you tell us anything more? About what you actually do? Not really. Pattern analysis for intelligence operations. That's about as specific as I can get. And the Medal of Honor, what did you do to earn it? I identified a threat that was invisible until I found the pattern. The intervention prevented an attack that would have killed many people. That's it? That's all you can say? That's all I can say. The details are classified at levels that won't be declassified during our lifetimes. The following weeks brought adjustments. My mother called more frequently, asking questions I couldn't answer but listening differently to the ones I could. My siblings reached out individually, their conversations carrying notes of apology they struggled to articulate. Family gatherings felt different now, not necessarily easier, but more honest. The undercurrent of judgment that had characterized our interactions for 20 years had been replaced by something more complex. Respect mixed with bewilderment, pride mixed with guilt. Do you travel for work? Elena asked at one dinner. Sometimes. Dangerous places? Sometimes. And we had no idea. That was the point. The retirement party became a before and after marker in family history. Before, Victoria the disappointment, the underachiever, the one who couldn't find her path. After, Colonel Price, decorated hero, intelligence officer whose work saved thousands of lives. The adjustment wasn't seamless. 20 years of established dynamics don't dissolve overnight. But something fundamental had shifted. My family no longer looked at me with concern about what I might become. They looked at me with wonder about what I'd already been, all along, while they weren't paying attention. General Morrison sent me a note a month after the party. Hope the family situation has stabilized. Your service deserved recognition, even if the recognition itself had to be limited. Your father's retirement seemed like the right moment, a transition in his life that could accommodate a transition in their understanding of yours. The hardest heroes are the quiet ones. The ones who serve without acknowledgement, who protect without praise, who let others believe whatever stories keep them safe. You've been a quiet hero for 16 years. I wanted your family to know that, even if they can't know the details. I kept the note in my desk drawer, next to the classified citation for the Medal of Honor. 2 pieces of paper documenting a life my family was only beginning to understand. The cover story had served its purpose. The work continued, as it always had. But now, when I went home for holidays, the conversation was different. My father asked about my well-being instead of my career direction. My mother expressed pride instead of concern. My siblings treated me as an equal, finally, rather than a project. The general's salute had given them permission to see me clearly. It had taken 20 years. But it had happened. He walked straight to me at my father's retirement party, a 4-star general in full dress uniform, and saluted. "Colonel Price, your classified work has saved thousands of lives." My mother laughed nervously, sure there'd been a mistake. My father looked at me like I'd transformed into someone he'd never met. My siblings whispered in confusion. But there was no mistake. The daughter they'd pitted for 20 years, the underachiever, the one who couldn't find her path, the family disappointment, was a decorated intelligence officer. Medal of Honor recipient. Colonel. The cover story they'd believed, the mediocrity they'd accepted, had been protecting work they couldn't imagine. General Morrison gave them permission to see me differently. It took 20 years. But finally, my family learned what I'd been all along, not a disappointment, but a quiet hero. The hardest kind. The kind that lets people believe whatever keeps them safe, even when what they believe is that you've failed.